First of all, I want to apologize to you guys because this Thank you. Welcome to Convocation. We're glad you're here. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce you to our speaker today. As you are aware, one of the goals of Convocation is to add to your cultural, intellectual, and personal experience at Snow College. And today's presentation will do just that. As Executive Director and Chief Curator of the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art at Utah State University, Our presenter has curated art exhibitions that bring attention to underrepresented artists and artistic practices, including the role of craft and applied arts in modern and contemporary art. Over the past decade, she has curated numerous exhibitions, including Jean Lowe, Your Place in the Multiverse, Proving Ground, David Maisel, A Matter of Taste, Art, Kitsch and Culture, and Transcendence, Abstraction and Symbolism in the American West. In 2022, she was the project director for Love in the Time of Coronavirus, Giving a Creative Voice to Utah Youth, which was supported by a Utah Humanities grant. In addition to this work, she has organized international artist residencies, administered national research grant programs, taught courses in art history and museum studies, and led the curriculum development team for the survey art history textbook, Makers, A History of American Studio Craft. She serves on the National Association of Academic Museums and Galleries Board, Women's Artistic Leadership Board, the State of Utah Art Collection Committee, and on the City of Logan Public Art Board. She has a BA in Art History from the College of Charleston and an Intercultural M.A. in Art History from Richmond, the American International University in London. Please join me in welcoming Katie Lee-Koven to the Convocation stage.
Okay, there we go. You can hear me now. Is are the slides working okay? I saw them sort of flickering. Okay. They're not happy? Okay, hold on. Let me see what's going on. Because it looks happy on my screen, so I just noticed maybe, is it still flickering? Oh, it's black. Interesting. All right, hold on a sec. What does it look like now? Okay, you all, because I don't know how to adjust the volume, so you'll have to adjust that for me. You all will have to let me know if the slides start messing up again, because I can't see what's going on there. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Cheryl, for inviting me down here. I've given, she can maybe make that echo. There we go, that's I've given a talk one other time down here at Snow College, and so it was really nice to be, I was telling Cheryl, with COVID, you know, we all were doing a lot of things virtually for a long time, so to be driving down here today to meet with you, I was like, wow, I haven't done that in a while. I haven't been on the road, you know, speaking and meeting with people. So, so as the director for and chief curator for it's a long name, the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art at Utah State University. It would be remiss if I didn't ask you. I know you probably haven't visited my museum before, but please come if you're ever up at Utah State. It's free and open to all. But can you raise your hands if you've visited the Granary Arts Center here downtown? There's a few hands. Well, that should be added to your cultural events assignment as an option. So they do some really great contemporary art exhibitions. And Amy Jorgensen, the department head here for the Department of Art, I think still sort of chairs and manages that nonprofit Contemporary Art Center. So that's a resource available to you, and she's bringing in artists from all over to exhibit their work there. So if you're not familiar, it's a really cool historic building on Main Street, so you can check it out. I know about it, and I'm up in Logan, so you all should know about it because you're here in Ephraim. And I'm sure you won't regret it if you go. She does, I have so much respect for her and what she does. So Cheryl asked me to talk about a particular project with you, The Love in the Time of Coronavirus, which was a particular project we did 2 falls ago in the midst of our first year with COVID. But it took me down a sort of memory lane of all the things we've gone through over the past 2 years and how we've changed and evolved, I think, more than we think we have. And I was quite surprised when I was going back through and looking at these things that we did and thinking about really how COVID, my talk today I'm calling How COVID Changed Our Museum for the Better. And it, without a doubt, did. And I think for me, one of the things two of the things I've always wanted to do better as someone who, as a director of a museum, is to connect with my community and to also bring forth more opportunities and awareness about the ability for museums to play a role in our well-being. People don't necessarily think about museums' well-being. There's all kinds of museums. A zoo is a type of museum. Natural history museums, science museums, art museums, children's museums. And the intent at the core of what museums do is education, right? But it's an experience that you have, experiential education. It's something that is maybe a little different than what we're doing here today. And so while education is at the core of what we do, how that education is delivered and what the takeaways are and who is experiencing those things matters to me. So connecting with community in the broadest sense, and I mean that in a very intentional, not general assumption of who that community is, but really trying to dig in deeper as to learn about who are parts of my community that I don't know. And how can I get them to see our museum as their museum? And that's a whole other conversation. I'll tie into that a little bit today. We'll talk about that. But you'll see some threads about well-being, community, and what I'm sharing with you today, and things that I'm passionate about. I know we're about to be entering April and the semester, and being on a college campus, I know that means things are really starting to build up. Anyone want to raise their hand if they feel like all their assignments are starting to build up? They're starting to feel a little bit of, wow, you all seem to be taking things, so a few hands, some of you seem to be really on top of your game and this point in the semester. Well, regardless of whether it's class or whatever is going on in your life, I thought let's just start. We'll do this for 30 seconds. This won't be extensive. But if you're willing, and again, you're probably like, why is this person who's a museum director doing this with us? But it does tie in. If you're willing, just place one hand or two hands over your heart and one on your stomach, whatever's comfortable for you, both on your stomach. And let's just take on your own time 3 or 4 deep breaths. And just be here. Don't worry about what's happening after or what happened before. And just take some deep breaths. Allow yourself to just be here. Give yourself that gift. It's really hard sometimes for us to just be exactly where we are. while the reality is we are exactly where we are. All right, so if you can, just by engaging with our bodies, breathing, hopefully that can just bring you here. And with our short amount of time we have today, I'm going to talk about some projects that we do and introduce you to our museum. Is it flickering again? Did I just see? Okay. You guys let me know. So what, this is sort of the overarching topics, my guideposts as we go through. March to June 2020. I had to think back, March 2020. I had a presenter speaking. It was mid-March. I think it was March 11th or 12th. And I got a call from the president's office at Utah State. Katie, you can't have that talk tonight. We're shutting the university down. Okay, this guest speaker just came from California. All right, well, I think we're not going to be having this event tonight. So then we were talking about, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to host this virtually? An hour later, call from the president's office. Katie, you can have your event. This is going to be the last event Utah State has that's a public event for this semester. Okay, we had the event. Shortly after that, the realities of COVID and it sort of the population, the numbers of people contracting COVID, were going up in the West. I'm just putting you sort of back in this place and time. Do you all remember March 2020? Where some of you may have been in high school, some of you may have been here already. It may seem like a long time ago. It kind of was a long time ago in some ways. I feel like there's a new term, COVID time. And is it still flickering? I'm sorry.
It's the cable.
Let's hope so. My computer's not always the...
It happened last week too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel reassured that it's maybe not my computer. All right. Hold on. Let's see here. Is that up there now? I can't see. No, okay, hold on. Oh, trade. She said it's probably directional, so it works in a particular way. Okay, does anyone remember spring 2020? Okay, someone said vividly. Tell me what you vividly remember. Yeah, our teachers, we weren't really equipped to go online and work from home and do school from home. And did anyone graduate from high school that year? Yeah, that had to have really sucked. I'm sorry that happened to you. There's actually a project I'll mention in here if we have time to, that someone addresses that experience. Let me just get into the talk, and hopefully we'll have enough time to get through everything. So April to June, for me at the museums, maybe I should walk this way instead, museums closed. And I immediately thought, okay, people are supposed to be wearing gloves and sanitizer and mask, and there's a shortage of these things, and we need to put up plexiglass and these things. So, okay, let me get online and see what I could order. And of course, I don't know if you recall, in the early days of COVID, they were saying, don't buy medical masks because our medical workers need them, right? And they were sort of trying to tell you, there were messages about trying to not make certain purchases that would negatively impact our healthcare industry because there were all these shortages. So I bought, actually, it was kind of funny, for hand sanitizer, there's a distillery in Ogden called Five Wives Distillery, and I read an article online that they were making hand sanitizer. So they shifted operations, and they've got alcohol, they can make sanitizer. And so I bought a big vat of it, and I bought so much, I still have some. We're still using it today. But I was able to get some sanitizer, some hand sanitizer, and get plexiglass up at my front desk. And then we got a registration system in place online because working with the university, because I thought, okay, if we have that, I can control how many people, right? If things are really bad, we can limit it to 20 people in the museum and require reservations. If things are not so bad, maybe reservations are optional, but we're still capping the amount of people. So I could sort of manage as things changed, because we didn't know, right? It was all a big guess how it would all play out. So I tried to do as much as I could, guessing at what we might need, meeting with our risk management folks to determine what kind of capacity would be safe. Later on, actually, we learned, if you look it up, museums are one of the safest indoor spaces, just so you know, if there's another outbreak of whatever, that you can visit, because we exchange air more regularly. Our HVAC systems tend to be a little better because we have humidity and temperature controls that need to be very good to manage our collections. So collections like to be stable, and they don't like fluctuations in temperature and humidity. So in museums, people tend to, give each other space. And I mean, art museums, we have some spaces, drawers and things where you can touch things, but we're generally not touch heavy, right? So these are all things that mean that museums are actually one of the safest spaces, indoor spaces that you can go to. We also had to pivot our exhibition plan. We were planning to bring in an artist, Jean Lowe, her work from California, and we had some work in our collection. But at that time, we couldn't even drive a truck to California or have an art shipper bring things, because that we didn't know, we were also borrowing some things from some collectors. We can't go into people's homes and borrow things. And even if we could bring all of these objects for this exhibit to Utah State, to our museum, are we even going to be open for people to come and see it, in a few months? And then we will have incurred all of that expense. So we had to postpone that exhibit and pivot really quickly. And we are fortunate to have a really wonderful collection. We have about 5,500 objects. Our museum focuses on American art with an emphasis on the diversity of creative output in the Western United States. So we think of the West very broadly, and so I'll talk about the exhibit that we pivoted, and within 3 months or less, my curator developed specifically in response to this pandemic that was happening, and what people were going through. Some things to know about museums and the impacts. Every industry was impacted. 70% of museums reported losing over 50% of their annual visitors, and over half of museums furloughed or laid off staff in 2020. If you think about things like membership is sort of driven on the concept of being able to engage with the things that you're members of, right? And supporting those. So that was impacted. Visitation, as I mentioned, extremely impacted. How can we serve our constituents if they can't visit the museum? right? And so those of us who weren't very good at doing things virtually, because in the world, in art museums and in art in general, the in-person experience we value over the virtual experience. But we have certainly come a long way in understanding that there is value in being able to offer a virtual experience as an option. Whereas we used to be a little bit more reluctant about that. And we couldn't do outreach. We have a mobile art truck that we take around the state to a lot of K through 12 to schools around the state. And we couldn't take our art truck out. We couldn't do our community art days programming. We couldn't do any of our programming, right? And art acquisitions or loans. I mentioned some loans. We also, as a museum, we acquire art, sometimes through gifts, sometimes through purchases from art auctions or otherwise galleries. The financial state of things was really up in the air, as well as shipping, and so all of that was sort of at a strange standstill as well. So how did we adapt and respond? I'll talk about this collection-based exhibition in a minute. We also created a responsive space that we knew would evolve based on what we would hear and learn from the community. So within this exhibition, which was titled The Day After Tomorrow, Art in Response to Turmoil and Hope, we also dedicated a gallery to be a community response space because there was so much uncertainty, and we wanted to allow ourselves flexibility to offer different things depending on what we would learn about and what kind of needs people would have. We pivoted, as many did, to offering virtual talks. We always wanted to do virtual tours, but it had never been a priority. I had my family, we had recently sold a house and purchased another house in Logan, and the virtual tour that the realtor used, I thought was like the coolest thing. And so I reached out literally to the real estate company and said, what if you all be a sponsor and you let us use your equipment and whoever does these virtual tours for you, and we try it in this exhibit when we open, and so we can test out this equipment you use to create virtual tours. And they were like, sure. So we did. For our first time, we offered a virtual tour. I'll show you, and I'll show you how we've gotten a lot better. Eventually we were able to test drive that equipment, and now we've invested in the equipment and software, so we have it, and every exhibit we have has a virtual tour. So if you live down, in Ephraim here, you can walk around our museum space within an exhibition on your own time, and it's really super easy to do. You don't have to download anything. I'll show you how it works. And then we were asking, really, what can we do to help people navigate through this? We wanted to also build trust, be inclusive, willing to take risk. What else are you going to do, right? I'm not going to sit on my hands and just hope things get better. This was the time to try things and take risk and to adapt. And so the photo, I'm not sure how well you can see it. I'll show you a couple other photos. This was, I'll talk about this piece. It was in the community response space a bit more. So this is the exhibit we curated, one of the exhibits, The Day After Tomorrow, Art in Response to Turmoil and Hope. And it was a collection-based exhibition. And if you recall, also, there was the murder of George Floyd that happened a few months after March. I think was it May or June? I should have looked up the date. But that also was very fresh. That was very raw and happening at the same time. And so there was a lot of civil unrest, a lot of just uncertainty, right? And so we wanted to engage. I'm going to take you into our first virtual tour. Well, I think I am. Oh, let's see here. It's not. I'm going to have to end the show, and because it's not really happy with the. This is what I'm going to show you. I don't know, though. So this is the page of our website, and I'm going to take you into the virtual tour, audio tour. So the exhibit, the intent is to explore how artists have responded to different crises, offering parallels to our own range of emotions and experiences that we were having in 2020. And there are three themes for this exhibition. A Better Tomorrow, which focuses on transcendence, alternative realities, divine, the afterlife, and bliss. A Worse Yesterday, which comprise works of art that address events that have shaken the world and thrown us into crisis, such as world wars, nuclear proliferation, AIDS, genocide, racism, and immigration. That was the second area of this exhibition. And the third is a Wry Ecosystem, which focused on artists concerned with the environment and how humans are changing it. So, and again, we pulled this exhibition together in just a few months. So here's our first virtual tour that we did, borrowing this software from a local real estate company. All right, so here's the exhibit. I wanted to show you this so that you could see how it works. Looks like the internet's a little slow, so it's not super happy. But these little dots on the floor are how you can navigate through the exhibit. And the first exhibit we did, this one, we were still playing with the software, and so we would get really close to the label, which I don't think you can see it on there, but so that you could read it. Now we have another system that we can show. So this is, so you could walk around any of our exhibits. And so this was the A Better Tomorrow space that I mentioned, where the works are about transcendence, alternate realities, divine, the afterlife, etc. And this space is about a worse yesterday. And sorry, and I'm just, for the sake of time, going to preview. This space is a Wry Ecosystem. And since it's been quite slow, the community response space that I'm going to focus on, sorry, it's a little lag, is this space in here. So in our community response space, we learned about a photographer, Maria Ellen Hubner, who was going around, and there were photographers around the country that were doing this, and it was called the Porch Project. And she went to 44 different families in Cache Valley and photographed them on their porch from a safe distance. And for her, it was a way to give back to the community in a way that she knew how, using photography to bring people together, to find a narrative and create dialogue during this period where we all felt really isolated. She also, trying to give you a little bit of a more, the portraits range and composition. This wall over here, she also had, she asked all of the 44 families to write something about what they were thinking in the photograph or how they were feeling at this particular time. And she wanted it on a piece of paper. She didn't want to digitally print them or have you email it. So we hung those directly on the wall. So they had a very physical feel to them, and you could see the handwriting, and you could read about the experiences and connect with, probably read and see things that you were experiencing yourself, or maybe connect with or learn about what other people were experiencing. And so again, now it's kind of easy to kind of forget about that time. I think we kind of want to a degree, but we were all mostly sitting at computers doing schoolwork or working from home, isolated from one another. Do you remember there was a toilet paper shortage? Does everyone remember that? That was a thing that happened. People ran to the grocery store and were really concerned about having groceries. And so just to put you back in that headspace, because it was a really strange time. And then over on this wall, we had this during this whole exhibition in the community response space. So you chose a piece of yarn based on your age range, and then you took that piece of yarn and you're supposed to share your journey. This year I felt, and you would wrap the piece of yarn. You could start somewhere, wherever you want, and each of those little points, if you can see these words, so there's healthy, wellness, familial, creative, peaceful, hopeful, argumentative, lazy, angry. There's a whole bunch of words. And you can start wherever you want, wrap a piece of yarn around it, and then any range of emotions you felt, you could participate. And it would build and build over the exhibit. And in fact, it built so much we didn't anticipate that. Again, we had never done this before, so we had to start over at some point in the exhibit, but we documented each of those as they built. I'm gonna go back. Oh, actually, I just wanted to show you one more thing on this exhibition. We won't have time for this, but we also offer audio tours now, and our audio tours are also connected to our virtual tours. So if you go through, you can click on a wall label and hear an audio tour. So you can click on any of these. They're not really loading well, but, and it has the piece of artwork. And we hired theater students to read some text for us. And so you could use the audio tour and the virtual tour to have an experience if you can't come and visit the museum. Okay, so I talked about this a bit. And Maria's, I just kind of I kept taking you through the virtual tour, realizing that we could just kind of check things out that way. But here's another photo of her project. And then after we did this project, we learned about the Love and the Time of Coronavirus project by J.P. Spicer Escalante. And J.P. Spicer Escalante is actually a professor of Spanish, but he also is a photographer. And somewhat similar to Maria's project, he went around the community and photographed a very diverse range of people in our community, people he mostly knew. And he wanted to document their lives and during this time of social distancing. And so he had 39 portraits that he did. And because he's a professor of Spanish, we had he also had responses from all of the people that he photographed. He asked them to answer a couple of questions. And he offered to have those in both English and Spanish for us, which was great. Another outcome, something that I had wanted to do, but we hadn't quite made it like a priority. We had a Latinx exhibition pre-COVID, and we had the text in English and Spanish for that exhibition. This was the first time someone offered, I'd like to have it in English and Spanish. So I said, absolutely, I would love that too. And now I can say all of our exhibitions we do in English and Spanish. So that's another sort of outcome that things that I didn't think about until, frankly, I was putting this exhibit together, all of the different things that we've made more of a priority because of COVID. And because of time, I'm not going to be able to take you through his exhibition. We have an online exhibition for his exhibit. I'll just give you a preview so that if you'd like to come back to it, or I heard that you have to write responses to maybe the speakers. So if you're still awake, hopefully this is somewhat interesting to you or something new that you're learning. You can, or if you weren't listening so great, you can just go to the website and look up the exhibits in 2020, and then you can talk about it like you were listening to me. Hopefully you're listening. But, just down here, you can, if you want, you can click on any of these images. We tried something a little different with his exhibit because it was just a short period of time. We did not do a virtual tour with that one, but we did this instead. So for each artwork, you can go in and read the text, and then it's another sort of version or iteration of a virtual tour. And this was a photo of he and his wife. So, and he had the participants wear masks and gloves and represent how they felt during this experience. And so if they had pets or loved ones, if they wanted to include them in the photograph. But you may not remember this. There was a period of time where we were all thinking we should be wearing gloves. Like, it wasn't a very long period of time that was a recommendation, but there was a period of time where, like, if you're going to the grocery store, we should wear gloves. And this was the period of time that he was doing these photographs. So how things change. All right, and that leads to, so we did those two exhibitions, and that led to Unmasking Creativity, giving a voice to Utah youth. And this was a project out of JP's project. We were talking, and we applied for a grant through Utah Humanities we were thinking, what can we do with schools? And it's so difficult to do what we typically do. So we wrote a grant to basically pay for them to purchase some nice cloth mask, and then we sent the word out to about 20 schools, and we had 5 schools that responded back across 2 different school districts that wanted to participate. We ended up having, you can see at the bottom, well, maybe you can see at the bottom of the screen, 86 students, 4 teachers across 5 schools participate. And what we asked them to do was take the mask, transform the mask. We kind of left that open to them. Take a self-portrait of themselves wearing the mask, and then write a short statement answering the questions: how has COVID-19 most impacted you and your family? Why did you choose to transform your mask this way? And why did you choose the location of your portrait? And this fulfilled Utah course standards, curriculum standards for fine arts and English language arts. So, as we always do with our programming we do with K through 12, we want to meet core standards that teachers are needing to meet. So this project even checked those boxes, which was great. So the photo you see here, we exhibited in the community response space, the portrait that the student took, the mask that they made, and then the short text that they wrote to respond to those questions that we asked them. And I'm just going to share a couple of those with you. This is from Mountain Crest High School. Natalie wrote the reason she chose this mask with colorful flowers and black letters, family, because the colorful flowers represent my family the way I feel, especially during quarantine. I felt like I got closer and spent more time with them. Did any of you feel I felt like I got closer to my family during that time? Some people, it was probably, I'm sure, the opposite. The reason I included my niece and nephew in the picture was because I love them, they're important to me, and during quarantine, I would literally see them every day. There's no specific reason why I chose the location for the picture. It looked pretty, and especially right now during fall. COVID has really affected my family. Obviously, it is not the same anymore. At the beginning, we were all really scared. Now it's kind of normal, sadly, although I'm glad my family is healthy and safe. This student, 8th grader, his mask portrays a quilt. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a quilt, and he missed his grandparents who are in California and wouldn't be able to see them. And so he decided to put the quilt, draw the quilt on his mask because it's something that reminds him of his grandparents, and it's on his bed. And I thought that was a cool one. This photograph was, the reason I included this one is this photograph I thought was a really strong photograph compositionally. I'm going to skim down for the sake of time, but he wrote at the very bottom that, some family members have gotten it, only one person so far has died. We had to quarantine after school started because our parents both tested positive. I'm sure all of this sounds very familiar to you. It sounds familiar to me. And even at that early period, how scary it was, if you remember, for us to have learned of people we knew who contracted it, not knowing how it would play out for them, et cetera. And these are some 7th graders. I wanted to show the 7th graders because I wanted you to see we had a range of middle schooler and the responses and how they were processing things were a little different too. And so this one, it was actually political. They wrote, people have to learn to social distance. The red side represents Trump, the blue represents Biden, the purple represents how no matter who wins, we'll make it through this. A way that we benefit from COVID is that we can be with our family more, and we can learn more about the internet. I'm not sure about that. But the virus has ended a lot of fun things, but it's started a lot too. And then this, it may be hard to see, but this mask, he put the a data, like a map, the tracking of reporting the cases per day. So the lines, so he drew a sort of graph based on, and I mean, have all of you, raise your hand if you've looked at some point during COVID, like a map of cases or data, the numbers, to sort of gauge how you're feeling or what you should do or not do. When in our lifetime have we all looked online to find the data, how much of something is happening to inform what we do or how we feel, like should we be wearing a mask? Should we go to this event, et cetera? I mean, we're using data a lot more. And I know I've got to wrap up so we have time for questions. So moving forward, I just wanted to show you a few things. There's a Clean Air Poster Air project at the bottom and the middle we participate in every year. High schoolers all over the state of Utah participate in, and we host that awards event. Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead celebration, we were able to celebrate mask making on the quad at USU to get USU students at the beginning of the semester embellishing masks. And then doing community projects. I don't know if you can see it, but I had my first blood drive last fall. in the museum. I heard on the radio there was a shortage of blood in the country, and in particular in Utah, because of COVID and all this other stuff going on. And so I thought, I wonder if anyone's ever done a blood drive in a museum. Like, instead of sitting in like a boring auditorium, you can look at artwork. So I contacted Red Cross and we did it. And we're actually about to have our second one this coming month. And we gave people information about the artwork that was around them. So if you come and donate blood, it was a different experience than you would normally have. We had a fundraiser for ceramic students selling their ceramics, and we reached out to the family place that provides resources to families. We said, can we give a portion of the proceeds to you all from the sale? And they were, of course, happy to have us do that. We also, that's my daughter. I don't know if you can, in the pink jacket. It's hard, maybe hard to tell on the screen. There's actually, the horse is a virtual, an augmented reality horse that, so we have QR codes besides some artworks now that you can put on your phone, and something in the artwork will kind of jump out at you, just a different way of engaging, even when people come into the museum, to engage and get you to take more than the average, which is like seconds with a piece of artwork, and to give you a little more time in different age groups. And then we just had a fashion designer, Babu Mohapatra. His work is up this week. He has designed fashion for Jennifer Lopez, Gwyneth Paltrow, Michelle Obama, Mary J. Blige. He went to Utah State for his undergrad, and he was just here last week. So that was kind of cool because we don't show fashion in our museum. Using that same community response space, I made that a space that we try to be more flexible. And as an alumni coming, imagine, like, there are people who have come to our museum who otherwise wouldn't, because we have this fashion in our museum right now. So trying to be a little more adaptive. So in conclusion, we did, by the way, I mentioned Jean Lau and the exhibition that I had to postpone. We finally had the Jean Lau exhibit this past fall that I had to postpone at the beginning of COVID. And so we were able to realize that ultimately. And we're now at our 40th anniversary this year. That's Babu, the Dean of the Arts, the president, wearing one of Babu's dresses, and myself last week before his talk. And I put the quote on there: the past cannot be changed, but the future is yet in your power. So with that, I hope the takeaways here really are that while museums, at the core of what we do, as I mentioned, is education, but empathy and vulnerability are things that I think threads that you saw in some of these projects that we did with the community. And I think when we're learning at our best, we are sometimes we're more vulnerable, we're open, we're willing to listen, to take that time, to give that time. And so projects and exhibitions where we can be and develop more empathy and more vulnerability and really embrace community in different ways, and also be as inclusive as we can, and as I mentioned before, bring forth more opportunities to embrace what museums can do to help our well-being. I think those are the things that we should be trying to accomplish as museums in the 21st century. So, thank you. I didn't leave a lot of time for questions.
That some of you need to go to your next class, but if some of you would like to stay and ask questions, please do so. And if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask now.
And you're welcome to come up here if you want to just ask me a quick question before you head out, if you'd like.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.